Hello, everybody. Welcome back to Geezerology's Freeform Friday. Today, Bob and I are going to double team a review on The Morning Show, the Apple TV Plus series. There are two 10-episode seasons of The Morning Show. The second one wrapped up on November the 19th, and Bob and I have both watched the entire series up to this point. There's been no announcement whether there will be or won't be a third season of The Morning Show. The series they credit it as being inspired by the Brian Stelter book titled Top of the Morning: Inside the Cutthroat World of Morning TV. Basically, what the premise of the series is it's a workplace series about a morning show, a network morning show that has been around for a while. It's a take on the Today Show and other shows like that, with Jennifer Aniston and Reese Witherspoon are the co-anchors of the show, and they're the stars. Steve Carell is also in it, and Julianne Margulies from ER and The Good Wife shows up in a second season. But anyway, the first season went in 2019. The second season was announced, and they started filming the second season at the beginning of 2020, and then it got shut down with the pandemic and lockdowns in the spring of 2020, and they ended up shutting down and actually retooling the second season to get some pandemic storylines in it. But anyway, the first season, I watched the first season and I liked it a lot. I don't want to get into too much details. I want to do spoilers here because this show is still new. So supposedly apparently there are a lot of our viewers have not seen the show. So I don't want to give away any spoilers. So Bob and I aren't going to go into too many details of the plot. We'll just try to skirt around a couple of things for matter of discussion. But we won't give any major spoilers here. The first season I loved a lot. I liked it a whole lot. In fact, when I got finished, I sent Bob a text. I said, "You've got to watch this show." And I later learned that Bob did. He jumped in and watched the whole two seasons of it. And I took a few days off after I watched the first season and watched the second season. The second season takes my review from a glowing review to sort of a mixed review. The second season was a big letdown to me. Wasn't nearly as good as the first season, but let me just start from the beginning. The first season starts, the very first scene on the first season is, and this is not a spoiler, this is how the thing starts. Steve Carell's character was Jennifer Aniston's co-anchor on the show for 15 years. The first scene of the series is Steve Carell getting fired over a sexual assault allegation, so the first series is essentially a Me Too story, ripped from the headline sort of thing. Where Stephen Carell was it all revolves around his character, and all 10 episodes is about this, and then what happened? Reese Witherspoon comes along and she replaces Steve Carell as a co-anchor of the show. I thought this first season was an exceptional examination of a Me Too incident and how and what kind of damage it does to people. It examines not only the person who committed the offense and not only the victim, but it gives us a good look at how it affects everybody in the workplace. how it affects their lives, how it affects their jobs. It even to me is gives you a good look at how it and how the damage and the effect that it has on the perpetrator of this crime, and it gives you a pretty sympathetic look at how it affects Steve Carell. Now, they don't. This is not a forgivable offense. Don't get me wrong. I'm not saying that, but at the same time, this gives us a pretty good idea of how Steve Carell, the character who is at heart basically a good person at heart, who just did a very bad thing, and it gives us a pretty good insight as to how it affects him as well as everybody else around here. And I thought it did a very, very good job at looking at that issue. It was over the top. A lot of, they take some dramatic licenses, and they went over the top on a lot of plot points and things like that. But still, it was very good. And I thought Jennifer Aniston's performance in this first season was excellent. She plays this sort of exasperated, self-centered character, and I thought Jennifer Aniston did a very, very good job portraying this character. I thought Steve Carell does a great job acting and portraying the perpetrator of this crime, and a couple of Reese Witherspoon is she's pretty good too, but Reese Witherspoon, to me, was no surprise. She has a pretty good track record, so she wasn't the revelation to me that Jennifer Aniston and Steve Carell were here. And a really good supporting cast. I want to mention that Billy Crudup, who has been around a long time, but I've never known much about him. He's always been a supporting character. I loved his character, this sort of a one-dimensional character, but he's an executive at the network. And he provided a little bit of comic relief with his arrogance and his sort of flippant way of how he deals with these sort of things. And he was really the kind of the comic relief of the first season. But anyway, just to put in a capsule, the first season was I thought it was a great look at this issue. The end, how they resolved the end of the season on the 10th episode, I thought it was a little bit over the top, the last scene in this episode, but still it was pretty good. And then the second season came along. I got excited about the second season, and the second season came along, and it was such a letdown. All of a sudden, the second season became, like I say, they started filming it at the beginning when the pandemic interrupted, so they kind of had to go back and retool it, get some coronavirus storylines in there and everything like that. But the second season just became this thing where they just pull things out of the headlines and just throw stuff up against the wall and see what sticks. It's just there's just a million different things coming at you here, all of them over the top, all of them is just ridiculous, both on a personal level and on a workplace issue and things like that. Until about 2/3 of the way through the 10-episode season, along about episode 7, they seemed to get back on track and finished up the story that they started before. We got a pretty good we got back to the Steve Carell storyline, see what happened to him, and I thought they had a really good wrap up of that story with him once they got back on track near the end of the season. And then the last episode of the series, which appeared on November 19th, they wrapped up the Steve Carell story and the Me Too story on episode 19. And then episode 20 became strictly a coronavirus story, and how this and how this news operation reacted to the coronavirus. And I thought it was brilliant the way they wrapped this thing up on a 20th episode. So anyway, my bottom line is the first season, thumbs way up for the first season of the morning show. A really mixed reaction on the second season. The first 6 or 7 episodes, I didn't give up on it because I was determined to watch the whole thing through. But I really hated the first 6 or 7 episodes. They just lost their way with it. They ruined a couple of characters. The writing was just horrible. And they just lost focus and just went crazy. And then they brought it all back. The last 3 episodes made the whole wrapped the whole thing up in a pretty nice little bow, and they brought it back in and did a nice job in the last 3 episodes of season 2. Bob, what did you think about this series?
Okay, well, there's not going to be a real counterpoint on this one, Scott, because I find myself shockingly in agreement with you. Um,
Ah.
you know, I had circled around this series for a long time because the subject matter interested me, but I was a little leery of the cast. Reese Witherspoon, Jennifer Aniston, Steve Carell. I kind of considered them to be, lightweight comedic actors. So I didn't know how seriously to take it. Well, when you recommended it to me, I decided I'm going to go ahead and take the plunge. So I started watching it, and I too got captivated by the first season, and I really enjoyed it. And all of those actors did a much better job than I was expecting, and they carried the dramatic parts of this really, really well. So yeah, I got reeled in big time. There were some times when it's like, well, you're a little over the top here, but I got reeled in. Second season, exact same opinion as you, Scott. I thought they just lost their way. They went over the top. It got cliched, and they had some obligatory stuff. It's like, oh, you're going to go there type thing. So yeah, and I agree. They did start finding their way back toward the end of the second season, and I too almost quit a couple times on the second season, but I stuck with it, and I'm glad that I ultimately did. I recommend watching it. Just be prepared that you might have a letdown when you get into that second season. One of the things that bothered me is by the time we're into the second season, I didn't think there was a likable character left in this series. Everybody seemed to suddenly have ulterior motives, to be manipulating things behind the scenes. And even the characters that you thought were going to be the upstanding ones suddenly are all also spiraling into areas that they shouldn't be in. So at the end, you're kind of like, who am I left to root for? And it's not that I necessarily wanted a good guy, but it's just no one's likable here anymore. And some of the situations became so over the top that it's hard to imagine that they would have occurred in real life. Of course, I'm not privy to what goes on into behind the scenes at a major network show, so maybe this stuff is real, but I just felt that it kind of spiraled into, oh my God, that can't be real. It's over the top. But they did bring it back toward the end, so I'd be interested to see if there is a third season, where they go with it. So anyway, I find myself your thoughts on this, Scott. I thank you for recommending that I watch it. I'm not unhappy that I did watch it. I I did appreciate that Steve Carell's character does start to find some redemption. And, for a long, long time, his character, without trying to give away a plot, isn't really aware of what he's done. And he does start figuring it out, there toward the end. So I did appreciate that story arc. And that was one of the more redeeming things about it. It's not we don't suddenly get total redemption for him, but he does start to figure out this is what I did wrong, and realizing the impact that he had on other people. So.
Yeah, again, that's kind of a weird thing, because I mean this is still kind of new to us. Our eyes have really been open to this situation in the last couple of years, especially since the Harvey Weinstein thing broke, right?
Right.
And we understand now that this isn't just just boys having their fun. This is serious problem. This is a serious problem. And I did appreciate that that they have, and I think it took some balls for them to take this approach to this character at this point in time, where we did get an examination of the perpetrator this time. We did get a sympathetic look at him, especially in the second season, when they picked up the story to kind of continue with examining the fallout from this situation that was the centerpiece of the first season. And and you're sitting there and you're not really quite sure, because you see what this person did, and you see that he was unrepentant about this for a long time, and then like you say, he eventually comes around and he starts understanding, and we start seeing his point of view, and getting a sympathetic point of view to this character along in the second season. And I appreciated that. I thought it was real good. It doesn't make it forgivable what he did, and the damage that he caused to people, but it does allow us to see things from the perpetrator's point of view, and see how he really damaged himself also. And I really appreciated that. And I thought they did a very good job of that.
Yeah, because he could have easily been a one-dimensional character.
Yeah.
But I want to elaborate on something you said just a couple minutes ago that I think is very, very important. How much this kind of stuff is permeating our society and our workplaces and our culture. And I know for a long, long time I was in that, well, it's a she said, he said thing. But then I started thinking about all of the times that I saw this happen during my career, and it tore apart a fire district that I worked at. And I know personally many women who have very credible stories about this. I wound up even being a witness to some of it. And I have women, people who are within my family that can testify to this stuff happening. Yeah, this stuff is happening in our society, and we've never dealt with it before. And I think it is a topic that needs to be explored and needs to be dealt with, and that whole power dynamics, that are in the workplace, and the power that certain people have over others. And so yeah, I ultimately I am glad that I listened to you and watched the series.
Yeah, and like I said, I think they did a brilliant job on examining this issue, and like I say, it's pretty much the centerpiece. It's what the first season revolves around, is this issue. I mean, there's a couple of subplots going on, but Steve Carell he just did a brilliant acting job of this character, I thought, and again, like I say, Jennifer Aniston did too, but that's why it made the first half, the first say the first 6 episodes of season 2, when they didn't abandon the story, but it became more of a subplot, where the main plot shifted back to the dynamics that goes on in the workplace and this on this morning show, on this TV show operation. And it just, I mean, they just they just threw these outlandish, crazy plot lines out there, and it's just all over the place. Every time you turn around, it's just this over the top little thing going on. It's like, and
very
and
so.
the writing was horrible. The writing was just bad. It was just bad. It was just unfocused. It was just bad. And the acting, probably because the writing was so bad, but these actors, especially Jennifer Aniston, I was so disappointed with her in the second season because her character just became this one-dimensional bitch, self-centered bitch. And and that was so the opposite of what that first season was. And like I say, and then at some point they finally got all this other stuff out of the way and got that out, and then got their focus back and got back to what made the first season so good. They got back to that for the last 3 or 4 episodes of season 2, and finished up on a really high note. And then even to the point where they just switched gears totally for that very last episode and went to just a strictly coronavirus COVID plot line just for the one episode. And I thought it was great. I thought I love that last episode. And I was thinking what they did with that last episode, I really wish somebody would have done that in real time and in real life,
Yes.
We're basically, I don't want to, it's not really a spoiler to tell you what this is. It basically what it is one of the characters comes down with the COVID, and this is like early in the process. This is like supposedly in March, and this when we were just first learning about this, and gets hit pretty hard. And so essentially what they do is they put a camera on this character and let the character just go through this whole coronavirus, this sick process with the cameras trained on her, and we get to watch what it's actually doing to this person. And I thought it was brilliant. And Jennifer Aniston was brilliant in that episode.
Yes, she was.
So anyway, the bottom line is on this, despite about out of 20 episodes, there was a bad 5 or 6 episode run there at the beginning of the second half. But even given that, I'm gonna give a pretty good thumbs up to this. If you've got Apple TV Plus, definitely check the show out. It's definitely worth your time. There's no cliffhanger here. It ends on a really strong note, and it's not a cliffhanger. I can see where if they come back for the third season, I can see where that last episode, the coronavirus episode, is sort of a launching point for a third season. But there's no cliffhanger here. It's everything's wrapped up. If it ends here, you get the feeling that you've seen the entire story. You're not missing out on any story if they don't renew this thing. But anyway, check it out, everybody. Bob and I are in agreement. It's definitely worth looking at, despite a pretty rough spot there. So anyway, thanks for listening. Drop us a comment. Let us know what you thought of the show, and also let us and more than that, I'm really interested to know what others think of how they handled this particular subject matter. I thought they did a brilliant job with it. I'd like to know if you don't agree and you think that if you found it offensive or whatever how they did this. I'd like to hear from you. I'd like to hear the other side of the coin. So drop a comment down there if you would. But anyway, so thanks for joining us. We'll be back on Wednesday with a Wednesday Spotlight, and we'll be back next Friday with another Freeform Friday. And we appreciate you listening, everybody. So long.
Thank you.